Engineers. Would all those who are willing and able please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of our country. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Grant us, O Lord, light to our understanding, prudence in our investigating, foresight in our planning, sincerity in our deliberating, the grace to follow truth in our judgment. Help us to be moved in our decision neither by fear nor by self-interest, and to do our work faithfully. May we respect the authority vested in us, for thou art the source of all authority, and may we use our directives for the common good, and for thy honor and glory. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you all. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Present.
Commissioner Regovich.
Here.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Here. We have before us the meeting minutes of the regular meeting of August 10, 2023. May I have a motion to approve same, waiving the reading thereof?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Any additions or corrections? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes. All right, moving on to our first public comment portion. We do have a presentation from Alan Exley. Well, that's a name we're going to have to learn how to say. Alan Exley, I believe, sir, you are the Chief Bridge Engineer with the Lake County Engineers Office, and you have a presentation for us regarding Ford Road.
I do, Commissioner.
Yeah, we had a hallelujah from the audience.
I like the
ma'am.
excitement. Thank you for having me here, Commissioners. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on the Ford Road Bridge in Madison Township. We're going to discuss why is the bridge closed, and further why we're looking at replacing the bridge rather than looking at a temporary type repair to the bridge. I've got a PowerPoint presentation here. Hopefully we can make things work there without a problem. Here's our bridge we have going on. If you look at the left side of this picture, the little triangular area that's on there, that is a wing wall. That wing wall has moved. Beginning in early 2022, we had some movement, some slope failure there. The county went out in order to keep the bridge open. We put in a curbed area to protect the public in order to do that. And then only about 4 months later, that wing wall made a major rotation of about 40 degrees. It failed, no longer supporting the slope behind it. We had major slope movement. We immediately went out, closed the bridge. We did an evaluation on the bridge to see what could be done at the time, and we decided at that point we needed to keep it closed. How do we do that evaluation? In the county engineer's office, again, I'm Alan Exley. I've been with the county engineer's office for over 29 years. What I do there is I evaluate the bridges, I evaluate the culverts, the retaining walls, the other structures throughout the county, and we make determinations of what needs to be done with them. We also have a bridge engineer whose team goes out, inspects those bridges every year, and we send reports to the commissioners to let you know what those evaluations are. You're aware of those. And those folks, with that inspection report, we make determinations for what needs to be done maintenance-wise, what needs to be done repair-wise, and whether or not those structures need to be closed for the safety of the public. And again, in this particular case, we decided that bridge needed to be closed for the safety of the public. The evaluation. Let's go back here quick. Can I go backwards? Okay, thank you. So if you look at this picture in the middle, the square portion in the very middle, that's where the original bridge was constructed. It was a sandstone structure. It was built in the 1800s. Best we can say is probably 1880s, well before there were any vehicles out there. Beyond that, the concrete extensions, you see the vertical walls that are on there, those were put on the end of the sandstone. The concrete walls were extended out in 1929. Still, didn't have a lot of vehicles out there at that point. Beyond that is when we did additional wing walls, sandstone walls to confine all the material along the roadway areas and be able to construct the slopes that you see going up there. In this picture, I have identified, again, where you can see the sandstone areas where the extensions were. The line number 1 is where we now have, without the wing wall, the potential line of failure of the slope. That's the natural angle of repose. That's if you would pile the dirt up into a pile, that's the slope it would naturally go to. Number 2 is where we're currently at. That's where the slope is at this point in time. It actually goes back underneath that curb that we had constructed, no longer supporting it. Area number 3 that's identified is the loose, damp soil. This is the area where it's all backfilled. This isn't the natural ground that was there, the stable ground. This is material that was put in there, and the only thing that kept it in its place and kept it compact was the fact that it was confined by the retaining walls and the other parts of the structure. So photographs to see what's going on here. This is a photograph from 2006 after the flood. You'll notice down the stream the large pieces of shale that came out from the bottom of this creek, this Talcott Creek. The water actually came over top of the structure at the time because we're not hydraulically adequate here. Again, the arrow pointing to a large piece of shale. The water actually picked this shale up after removing it from the bottom of the creek and lifted it into positions out of the way. Massive areas of shale that had been removed. This was all lost along the structure. On the south side of the structure where the water comes in, when the water comes up, it impacts that sandstone wall directly. When that happens, the water rolls back on top of itself. There's a lot of turbulence, and you can see where it's actually eaten away the shale there. There's actually a little area that goes up to the sandstone wall itself where all that shale has been removed. On the north side, we'd had significant amounts of deterioration, again, due to erosion, due to some movement, and we repaired that north area. That's where we have a GRS wall on top of there. We'll show you that to you in a second. That's a geosynthetic reinforced earth wall, one of the many repairs we did on this bridge to keep it open over the years. But what's important in this picture is that little triangle up in the corner where the arrow is pointing. That was a failure that happened when the wall began to move. In this particular case, it's still in its position. After the failure, you look at that triangle at the top of the wall, and you can see that it's completely failed, broken off. It's laying at the bottom of the picture, you can see. The repair that we put in there, 4,000 PSI concrete, completely crushed when this retaining wall moved. The wing wall on the right side of the picture, you can see how much it rotated out. That was a 45-degree angle back from the opening of the structure. The thing that's also shown here is with all the material that it's eroded between the wing wall and the structure. That's all your fill that's coming out, all that loose material. That's also very much narrowed the space, the opening, and the hydraulic adequacy of the structure itself. On the right side of this photograph, at the bottom, you can see how much shale is actually lost. It's significant, and that's how that wing wall was able to move. That was all on the northwest side. On the northeast side, we had the same type of configuration, same type of wing wall, and the arrow is pointing to that same triangular area that's beginning to fail. The same thing that's happened on the northwest side is happening on the northeast side. On the right side of the picture, you can see where that GRS wall is also failing, actually crushing at the bottom. And there's actually fabric that goes back behind this wall that holds it into place. So that's just unraveling, and it will continue to move as time goes on as well. At the toe of that northeast wall, you can see where there's a crack developing in there. That crack is there because if you notice the footing at the very bottom, the shale used to be all the way to the top of that footing when it was built in 1929. All that shale's been lost. At the very toe, there's enough shale to hold that piece in place, but the rest of the wall is moving. That's made that crack there. You've already got the crack at the top. When that crack decides to go all the way through the concrete, that wall will be ready to move the same way the northwest wall did. Here's the repair we did at the top. Here's the curb that was placed in there. We put drainage in there to keep the water out so that it would slow how quickly the erosion was happening in that area. And for the most important part is to protect the traveling public. Even if that slope moves pretty significantly at this point, the traveling public would still be protected by the guardrail and the curb itself. After the rotation of the wall, you can see where that curb is undermined. As far out as we had constructed the slope behind that curb, all of that moved all the way back underneath the curb. So that curb is no longer able to support the traffic, and it's no longer able to protect the traveling public. Again, here's a large void. It's a large void underneath that curb. And that's when we decided we had to close the road and either have to do some sort of repair or we have to look at the replacement. Why did we continue to go with the idea that we need a replacement? In simple terms, the failures when a structure or a component of a structure no longer is functioning as designed. The wing wall failed, it's no longer retaining soil, the soil is all loose behind where that slope is, it's no longer functioning as designed. The northeast wall is doing the exact same thing. It will soon not be functioning as designed. The entire north slope requires stabilization in order for the county engineer's office to protect the roadway and hence the traveling public. So what do we look at? Potential options for temporarily supporting the north slope. We looked at, first thing, let's replace what failed. Let's look at putting back the retaining wall the way it was. You have to go in there, thoroughly remove enough shale in there to construct a footing, which is well below where the shale is already eroded. You have to put equipment in the creek, you have to remove a lot of material, you have to be able to build the wall, you have to get Army Corps permits. There's a lot of things involved with that just didn't make it a reasonable direction to go. Sheet pile wall was probably the simplest approach, but with the shale at the bottom, you can only drive the sheet pile down to the shale, and that does not allow it to have the structural design strength to be able to retain soil. It will just move with the soil. Drilled shaft walls, that's where you actually drill a hole into the ground. You drill it through the shale, you put structural reinforcing in it, you fill it with concrete. This is a plausible way of building a new retaining wall at this location. Unfortunately, looking at the location where it is, the length of wall you have to put in, having to do something on both sides of the bridge, you're looking at, including compaction, roadway, guardrail, you're looking at over $500,000 project to do this. It was just cost restrictive. The other thing that's been discussed, I've heard from the meetings, is a grouting method. Grouting method is typically in the industry known as soil nailing. This is something our office has done on different projects. We've done it on Calla Road, we've done it on Stocking Road. And this is a system that typically works on a natural slope failure, not a failure that occurs because you had confined material from structures. This is if you have a slope that simply fails. The undisturbed material that was behind that is still stable at that point. And physically take pipe that has holes in it, you shoot them into the ground with, lack of a better term, a cannon type mechanism. They penetrate the ground as far as they can go, You put pressure grouting into those pipes. The grout comes out through the holes, stabilizes a bigger area. The soil arches between the pipes, usually grout on top of it to hold and stabilize that area. And those pipes have to go deep enough to intercept the failure plane where you would expect the earth to continue to fail to. In our particular case, we don't have the soil in an in-state condition where it's stable. We have loose materials. It would be difficult to expect that material to arch between the pipes. And because, if you remember from picture number 1, how deep that number 1 line is, you'd have to be able to shoot those pipes well past that first line to get it deep enough to intercept the slope failure plane. Neither one of those options are too likely, and it also couldn't be used on the northeast side because we actually haven't had the failure occur there yet. So we had to rule that one out. Hence, we're looking at a bridge replacement project at this location. The thing to keep in mind, all the temporary fixes are temporary. All the temporary fixes, when you move to the bridge construction project, have to be paid for to remove them. Hopefully that helps everybody understand where we're at today.
Okay, made some quick notes during your presentation. Thank you. I believe has been very instrumental, but there are some finer points I'd like to jump on. We keep talking about the Ford Road Bridge Replacement Project.
Correct.
What we currently have, though, is essentially a culvert. It started out in approximately 1880 as a sandstone culvert. That was 143 years ago. Just doing quick math. Some box culverts were added, sections added. That was, I believe, 1929. That was 94 years ago. It should be no surprise that we're having challenges. But again, this is essentially a culvert. We're looking to remove all of these materials and put in a proper bridge. One of the things that I think we need to really talk about also is the creek. That alignment is not aligned with the culvert, so there's an awful lot of dynamic activity taking place there. And some of the discussions about confining the material. What happens when that material gets into the creek bed? That's not something EPA is happy about. Is that a reasonable statement?
The EPA, anybody environmentally, would not like that material to go in there. It's fill material. It's not native material to the area or to the creek itself. And it will continue to erode. Like you saw where it was coming between the wing wall and the structure itself. That material will continue to erode every time. We just had rain last night. I'm sure a significant amount of material was removed from that slope. And the toe slope on the other side of the wing wall will continue to move as well.
And this is not something discretionary to the county engineer. This is, you're following the law. When I say you, the engineer's office, they do not like non-native materials finding their way into our waterways. Even a creek in this case, which is basically the size of a small river, that's a pretty big waterway there. Is that a reasonable statement?
That's a very reasonable statement.
And I think something that really needs to also be focused on is the shale has eroded, and that is contributing to the failures. That is the foundation that this bridge is built upon, that shale. And I think you commented on it, but I think we should really put an emphasis on it. The foundation of the bridge, the foundation of this culvert, it's gone.
Right, and that's throughout all the components. That's underneath the original sandstone that was stacked there, the extensions, the additional sandstone wall that I showed where the water impacts that, where it's not aligned properly with the bridge. That was an addition, and that movement is actually creating problems with the GRS wall as well.
And something that you pointed out, the large void under the curb. And I'll take you back in time because I know you were actively involved back in, I believe it was the storm of 1996. We had roads and bridges that were compromised in ways that from the top looking down, it was not obvious. And until you actually did a proper inspection, I know there was sections where there could be portions of the road that looked perfectly normal, but they were completely undercut. There was nothing underneath them. Do you want to maybe comment on how something might, to a casual observer, look to be fit and proper even though it's been completely undermined?
Well, that's an event that is burned into my mind July 27th, 2006, we had the 500-year storm.
Sorry, I got the year wrong, 2006, thank you.
You had the photographs that showed the massive pieces of shale that had been removed, that were removed at that location. That bridge, as high as it's 25 feet from the top of shale to the roadway surface. That bridge overtopped. Now, excuse me, Commissioner, I know you want to use the term culvert, and you're absolutely right. By definition, it's a culvert, but by Ohio law, anything over 10 feet is considered a bridge. That's why I call it that.
Excellent.
I'm following the legal terms, not
No, we do.
the engineering terms, I should say. So yeah, when that happened, we had to revise drainage through the area, we had to replace pavement, we had to reconstruct slopes, we had to reconstruct the GRS wall, the geosynthetic reinforced earth wall, and several items through there to get that one open, along with several other structures in the county. Very busy time.
So, let's see. I guess the elephant in the room is, although this is a great presentation, you've given us a lot of history and looking forward, this does not touch upon how we're going to pay for this. That's a much larger discussion that needs to be had at some future time, hopefully sooner rather than later. But we do need to have the conversation of how we're going to be paying for this and other such projects. Gentlemen, anything you want to add? I've pretty much hit all the key points I wanted to.
Mr. President,
Sir.
I think that, I think hopefully answers the public's questions on, there's no quick and easy temporary fix for that road. I think we've had a lot of people up here wondering that. So from your presentation, I think that hopefully answers those questions. I guess last night's storm gave us some flashback to 2006. I know it did for me. So.
Absolutely. I hope I answered some questions. That was the intent.
I believe you did, and obviously you'll make yourself available if anybody from the public wants to have a follow-up conversation with you about anything. Is that reasonable?
Absolutely.
Anybody?
Always willing to talk about the structures.
Anybody in mind off the top of your head?
Well, I don't see Mayor Mara here, but I wanted to make sure that I want to satisfy, because he's asking a number of
Absolutely.
questions that need to be asked and answered. I think this is an affirmative response to that. There are others who are taking Mayor Mara's thoughts and going to even more extremes that, we don't even discuss. But to that extent, if there's anyone in the audience wishing to comment on this, now is a good time. Yes, ma'am. Do you mind coming up, your name and address for the record, please?
A whole list of things.
Gotcha. Thank you. Alan, you might want to sit down for this.
I'm Margaret Bushman. I live at 5357 Ford Road. My family owns property at 5359 Ford Road, and we've been greatly impacted by the closure of Ford Road. I thank you very much for your presentation, and I'm honored to have been here today to hear that. A couple of months ago, we were told that Ford Road, Payne Road, and Williams Road all had the equal priority to being fixed. And I find that statement to be very misleading, because the people making that statement and accepting of that statement had to know that Williams was going to be the priority due to the school. Why not just say it then? I mean, we can all accept that Williams has to be the priority if the school buses have to get there. What I want to know is, what proportion of the $1,300,000 estimated that was given to the engineer's office is estimated to be needed to repair Williams Road? The Tribune newspaper said that it was all going to Williams Road. What's going to be left for Payne Road? And it looks like there's going to be nothing left for Ford Road.
So if I could take a swing at this, and I'll look to the engineer. Williams Road is the first road that we can get to. That does not make it a higher priority. It's just what we can get to first. If you think of it in terms of triage, you take care of what you can take care of right here and now. The $1.3 million is the estimate for that road. All of those dollars are for that road.
Okay.
They are not for any other road.
Okay.
And that is, as I mentioned just a few moments ago, the funding for these road and bridge projects. We do need to have a genuine conversation on that. but I would turn to our engineer, sir. Did I adequately answer that?
Okay, well, the easy answer is simply this. We have 3 projects. 2 of them are very complicated engineering projects. One of them, Williams Road, is very straightforward, very easy, and very quick to put on paper and get ready. It's a matter of who came through the door first. Williams is ready. It was a short engineering design. It is ready to go. It's important to get started. And so it just happens to be that way, and that's the only reason Williams is first. Payne Road, we pretty much are well along in the engineering that. I'm probably going to be reviewing the final plans in the next couple of weeks, and then that'll be ready to go pending on
Fair to
whatever
say
the next
there's
step
no
is.
money for Payne Road.
Ford Road, as you can see, is even a more complicated project engineering-wise than Payne Road. And we have a consultant on that. We have a report. We're deciding on what the final design is going to look like with that engineer, and he's going to be starting on that within a couple of weeks. And it should be ready in the spring. So it's just a matter of, lining them up end to end. We have 3 different engineers working on these, so, and we're spending about $900,000 on this engineering adventure for all 3. But that's, that's where we are relative to the priorities. The priority is, they're all priorities, but, depending on how difficult they are as to when those plans are ready.
Right, but I just think it was kind of misleading, just, because you knew Williams was going to have to be a priority because of the school.
Well, it's really not a priority. Again, it's just a matter of fact that it's a quick in and out. It is, yes, it's convenient, or not convenient. It's nice that it is done and ready to go because of the school. But if it was a very complicated project, it might have gone next spring, and the school would have to do a detour all year, and Payne might have gone first. I mean, it's just a matter of what we have ready to go. And since all 3 are priorities, and we want to get them under construction right away to get them done right as soon as possible, all 3 of them, that's where we are.
Okay. All I can go by is what was said at the meeting last week, and the meeting last week said that we're going ahead with Williams Road so that the school buses don't have to go all over Creation to get to the school.
Well, that was just, we were more or less explaining that makes Williams Road important, and the good news is it is a short, quick fix. And so
I'm not
that
questioning,
makes it important, but
it needs to be fixed. I know that.
If
But-
it was going to take 2 years to do, it would take 2 years to do. The good news is it's going to take 60 to 90 days to do, and so all the way around, that's also why it is a quick, easy fix and a quick design. Design time was very short, so that it's all a matter of the first person through the door.
Well, how do I get through the door?
If I could
Well, we're on. Your door is open, but unfortunately, it's, as you noted, it is a pretty complicated project. We have been on it. It's a lot more complicated because of the soils problem than the other 2, and it will. I mean, we're moving it along as fast as we can reasonably in order to get the proper fix. We're talking about spending an awful lot of money. We want to make it right.
We do want to make it right.
Yeah, we want to make it right.
And I thank everyone for the thorough presentation that was given today. And just out of curiosity,
Actually, before you move on, I think maybe let's ask the question a little different way. Engineer Gills, is it safe to say if we did not do Williams Road, this would not have moved Ford Road or Payne Road ahead?
No, they'd be in the same location. They'd be right where they are.
So when you hear or think that it's a priority that's put, it is not. It
No,
is
I'm
just
not-
I just want to be abundantly
Okay,
clear on that.
I don't want to imply that Ford Road would be moved up on the scale if Williams Road wasn't fixed. But it just seems interesting that Williams Road got closed in June of this year. Ford and Payne got closed in August of last year. And due to financial reasons, progress has not really been made.
Fair enough.
So,
So your next point, I'm sorry to interrupt.
just out of curiosity, what was the school that Williams Road feeds to?
Ooh, yeah, I think.
It's the new
correct.
school in Concord, but that doesn't tell me what.
I can tell you from my perspective, this is one of the primary ingress egress points for public safety forces. That's been my focus. I understand that there are schools that are being impacted, but the primary ingress egress for public safety forces is Williams Road. I have said it before, I'll continue to say that has been my personal focus on this. So I don't know if anybody wants to comment as to what school the new school is, what its name is.
Parkview Elementary.
Say it louder, please.
Parkview Elementary.
Parkview Elementary. Okay, thank you.
All right,
Thank you, ma'am.
thank you for now.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wishing to address the board? Sir? Good morning, sir.
Good morning. My name is Reverend Chris Bahari at 182 West Jackson Street. And I just wanted to announce that the One World Day parade coming this Saturday is the 77th annual parade where, on Sunday, sorry, not Saturday, Sunday. And it's on Martin Luther King Boulevard. And as you know, on Martin Luther King Drive is many gardens from countries all around the world. Some countries have put a lot of money and developed beautiful gardens and reception areas and statues and other things. But other ones, maybe lesser known, just have a plaque. And One World is the idea that, you know, we live in one world. And so that parade is going to be on Sunday, starting in approximately around 11:30, from the beginning of Martin Luther King to the Rockefeller Plaza, which is a short distance. But in that, many nations and groups of people from those nations will be marching with their flags, and a lot of them in their traditional dress and costumes from their countries. It's a wonderful experience. You know, many years it's been on Channel 8, and they have many programs that the public can watch or go down and watch it in person. It's going to be a beautiful day. It won't be too hot. It won't be raining like last night. And Bishop Merble, myself, and the church congregation will be marching in that parade with our flags and representing Haiti, which also I would like to express that everyone offer a prayer for Haiti. Haiti had their president assassinated a year ago, and the country is still in dismay, and there's a lot of problems there. So please keep in your heart and in your prayers for the people of Haiti. And thank you very much. That's all I wanted to present.
Thank you, Reverend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alan, hold that thought. Alan, is there anything you wanted to add, or are you good for now?
I'm good right now.
Okay, just want to make sure. Ma'am, you're up. Thank you for that
Hello.
brief pause.
Hello, I'm Lois Osborne. I live at 334 South St. Clair in Paynesville. I want to preface my comments by saying I attended the commissioners' meeting 8/10, and I think that was 3 weeks ago, to the day, and I was very reactive in my comments because I was just reacting to some awful, hateful, disparaging things that were being said. So today I am being proactive. And I've had time to think about it. I've rewound the tape. We're recorded, you know. So, first of all, I want to address my comments to Mr. Massey and the rest of you. There was quite a bit said during that meeting, and it just seemed to be an overflow of ideas, and all of a sudden a comment comes out that says, teachers are babysitters at Paynesville City Schools. They're just babysitting their students. Well, I took great offense at that. Number one, I taught at Harvey for 10 years between 1973 and 1985. I had wonderful students. Some of them received full-ride scholarships to MIT, Vassar, and Cornell, and Ohio State, and other wonderful higher education institutions of learning. I taught college-level courses there. That was before we had the AP program. That's before we could even send our students to Lakeland and Lake Erie College to earn college credits while going to high school, which is the best program to ever come out of the Department of Education, in my opinion, in the state of Ohio. I have friends whose children are graduating from high school with sophomore status. So they've already completed 2 years of college while getting their diploma. Okay, my children also attended Paynesville City local schools and graduated in 1999 and 2001, respectively. We had a wonderful gifted program in elementary school and middle school, and I'm wondering why that program ended. Now we have AP classes at Harvey High School. My husband also served on the school board for 12 years until 2001 when our son graduated from high school. I've been involved in the schools, in PTA, and in the Educational Foundation. So I just want Mr. Massey and others here today to know that there are a number of graduates from Harvey High School who have gone on to have very successful careers and have made big marks in their professions. But some of them are still here in Paynesville, and they're doing incredible work to help our community. They're invested in our community. Someone who comes to mind right away is one of my former students, Brian Jones. I think many of you saw the front page News Herald article about the Read and Feed program ministry and distributing all kinds of book bags and books at Jackie's. Frances Webb is another good friend of mine and kind of a former student. I think she was a senior when I started at Harvey. She is a current school board member, and she is very concerned about academics and is very enthusiastic, and things will get done under her reign, I know it. So I think many educational systems feel, oh my gosh, we're teaching to the test. And test scores just tell one part of the story. Harvey High School has a fantastic Future Business Leaders of America program, and they have gone on to national, and they have won all kinds of awards. So we're doing more than just babysitting students at Harvey High School. As you know, our band director, Amir Jones, just won a fantastic award because he has really turned that band around. I mean, I remember years ago it was kind of sad to see the Harvey band at halftime. Now it's just full of students, and there's wonderful scholarships that both Amir Jones and his counterpart, Kim Hildak, are giving to those people who are in the arts. I guess I could go on and on and on. But I just want to leave it with this thought. I think sometimes in a public forum, we need to think first before we speak, okay? Because what we say can't be taken back, all right? So I think I'm trying to be as positive as I can. I am running for school board for an unexpired term as a write-in. So I am doing everything I can to be a positive influence in our schools and in our community. I'm not just one of these people who stands up and complains about things. We try to get things done here, just like you, as commissioners, try to get things done here. And sometimes it's not pleasant, but you've always got that goal of what you want to accomplish. So thank you very much for your time.
Ma'am, thank you for your comments. Anyone else wishing to address the board? Mr. Massey?
It's not really appropriate at this point in time because we're really supposed to be talking about the agenda items at the first public comments. If you want me to wait, I'd like to address Ms. Osborne, but I'll wait until the second session.
That's fine, sir. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the board? Sir? And for those who were watching, Mr. Massey deferred to the second public comment portion. I didn't know if that was on mic, so I thought I should add that. Good morning, sir.
Morning. I'm Chris Weiss from Leroy.
I was going to say,
Trash Road. Thompson mailing address, sorry. Leroy Township. I wanted to thank Alan for your presentation. I understood everything he was talking about. I understood the pictures, the diagrams, and so forth, but I'm an engineer. Been doing engineering for 37 years, okay? What I'd like to know, if the three of you gentlemen can tell me, did you understand what he was talking about? Or was there anything unclear in any way, shape, or form about what he was trying to get across?
I personally found his presentation to be clear and unambiguous. Yes, I believe I understood it fully.
Mr. Regovich?
I understood.
Mr. Plechnik?
This isn't a back and forth. I understand, but I don't want this to be like the Republican debate last night where he asked everyone to raise their hand.
Didn't ask you to raise your hand. I enjoyed the debate myself. Well, okay, so, before anybody comes up and says, you engineers think you're so doggone smart, why can't you design something that's going to last forever, okay? Well, what we learned is the thing was originally put in place in 1880, okay, when we had wagons, okay? Since that time, things have changed quite a bit. I live out there. I traveled, when that road was open, I traveled it usually on a daily basis. I've actually climbed down into that valley in the last month and observed everything that Alan brought out, okay? Some things that, and once again, we heard the mayor of Timberlake talking about the fact that, well, we're going to grout the road, grout the soil, and be done with it and move on. We're going to put a Band-Aid on this thing and we're done. What hasn't been brought up, okay, there are many reasons why that area is failing, okay? One of them that people probably haven't known about is back in 2010, when Interstate 90 was being torn up and replaced. In fact, all through the years 2000 forward, when they did all the major construction on Interstate 90, but particularly in 2010, Allega poured a temporary lane going from Lane Road out to 528 for the winter. They didn't put any rebar in it so they could tear it up the next spring. Okay, another waste of taxpayer money. But nonetheless, when they started tearing that all up in 2011, they were trucking all that material and stockpiling it in the yard on Vrooman Road. Okay, they were using quad axle tractor trailers and they were loading approximately 40, 50 tons in the trailer. Until ODOT found out what they were doing. And they said, can't do that, okay? They were overloaded by 40,000 pounds conservatively. So what did they start doing? They started using Ford Road, okay? So they would get on Interstate 90 at Vrooman, they would go out onto the freeway, they would load the concrete rubble, continue eastbound to 528, and they had started turning around, coming back 90 to Vrooman to unload in that yard. Okay. After ODOT did that, they started sending the straight trucks that were properly loaded back Interstate 90. The other trucks came Ford Road. So you had a fleet of quad axle dumps, tractor trailers running that route constantly, every day for months. Okay. You can't tell me that didn't degrade that roadbed and cause significant harm to the bridges out there, okay? How do I know this? Well, at the time I was building my home in Leroy, my driveway is 3/4 of a mile long. I went out to see Fred Knight from Allega Construction, who was the superintendent. I made a deal with him to have him bring some of those quad axle dumps out to my place, 9,000 tons of rubble, which I used to construct my driveway, okay? We had a 990 John Deere to place it. Took us a month and a half to move that material. And I can tell you that when I saw those trucks coming up the road, I could see the road rippling underneath the load, okay? So that's one of the problems, okay? Last night, what did we have happen? We had a structural failure. Fortunately, I haven't heard any fatalities resulted from that. And I know it wasn't county property, but a garage collapsed. Okay, we had to shut down Route 2. Okay, this man cannot control those kind of events. Okay, and with your permission, sir, I'd like to give you something here. Okay.
Oh, jeez.
Now, why am I doing that? I'm not doing that to embarrass him. I'm doing it to embarrass you three. If you gentlemen are going to reduce this man to the status of a common beggar, then I am going to provide him with a tin cup to rattle under your noses, okay? You guys were not forthright with me last week when I asked about the funding, okay? I want you guys to be honest and straightforward, okay, completely about what you're expecting the engineer's office to do, okay? Because what I heard is that this $1.3 million and other money, you want to withhold that from funding these projects to get him to sign an agreement to put the money back into the general fund or to otherwise bond it out, okay? I'm sick and tired of hearing that this man has to take his budget, which largely goes to his own staff. He just said a few moments ago he spent $900,000 or is spending $900,000 doing engineering work, okay? In addition to that, he's running a fleet of plow trucks. He's got men out. He's got people out cleaning ditches all the time and doing every other thing that the county has to do, plus his own staff. And I can tell you, these people are well trained, okay? They are legitimate engineers. Whether they're male or female, they're engineers, okay? And they should be treated as such, all right? So what I want to know, and I want it in plain English, are you going to fund these projects? And when are you going to do it? And are you expecting the engineer to bond this out or give you the money back? Simple answers. Can I have a response, please?
Mr. President, I'm going to defend the institution of the commissioners here and say that public portion is meant to be an opportunity for the community to speak. It is not a debate. It is not a back and forth or a chance to play reporter or ask questions of different people sitting here at this dais. It takes away from everyone else's opportunity to speak, to simply demand answers. We can all ask questions and put folks on the spot and try to have a back and forth debate. No one is better at that than I am. But it would not be appropriate. That's not what public portion is meant to be. I demand an answer to this. I demand an answer to that. Will you pledge to do this? Will you pledge to do that? Will you swear this? Will you raise your hand? I'm going to take the bullet here and say we're not going to have that back and forth. That's not appropriate. My question to you is, if you care about this as a resident, then why don't you ask the office in charge how they are structuring their budget to make sure that these things are taken care of, not just today, but over the next 5, 10, 20, 30 years. Ultimately, this is not an engineers meeting, this is a county commissioners meeting. And we certainly entertain discussions about things ranging from school board to the engineer, but saying you're going to embarrass the commissioners and you're going to hand a prop and compare the engineer to a beggar, I honestly don't think that that is a positive or appropriate way to proceed. People are dependent on their roads and bridges. This is a serious matter. It's not something to make light of or score political points on. I understand we have many candidates in this audience, and as someone who's been a candidate many times himself, I appreciate the need to get attention and to demonstrate your commitment to the public, but this is not a place to campaign or give one-liners. So
I'm not here campaigning.
I stand not in defense of myself, but in defense of the institution of the county commissioners and all of the hardworking folks who work for this county. I understand that we have one of the freest public portions in Lake County. I'm proud of that, but it is not a place to put individuals on the spot, demand responses, and make political points. It's just not. This is an opportunity for you to make your statement, not to say, I demand that you answer this question, I demand that you answer that question. Will you make this political pledge or that political pledge? I think you're responsible for this. Do you agree? It's not the place for that. It's your opportunity to give your opinion, to state any questions, and if it's appropriate,
I'm stating the question.
If it's appropriate after public portion, folks will respond.
I'm stating the question, and I expected to get an answer, a direct answer. And this is not about politics, it's about doing your job.
And to that point, assuming the engineer would be willing, perhaps it would be in everybody's best interest that we have a workshop before our next commissioner meeting, if my colleagues are open to that. Maybe at 8:30, just meet before the commissioners meeting, talk this through, have legal, because I think we all know, per the revised code, the county commissioners and the county engineer are partners in this. We need to talk this through And I'm going to bring up the specter of bonding and what we're going to have to report to for underwriting for a jail project. The underwriters are going to look at our leadership abilities, and I think this is an opportunity to address this issue in a conversational and competent way. Engineer Gills, would you be open to that, sir? Meeting perhaps in a work session and just talk this through.
I'm fine.
Gentlemen, are we open for
Mr.
that?
President, I don't know how you say we weren't forthright last week. We said we're working on it, we're meeting. We did meet this week. We did talk. Our financial situation changes daily, if not weekly, on what we have coming in, what's going out. We've had those conversations and we're working for it. Every time we've stated that we're still working on the engineer's timeline, and we haven't come off that yet. So we got the funding for Williams Road. Williams Road's ready to go. We intend to do the same things for the roads coming up. How we do it for each time may be different for each bridge. We don't know that yet. That's the expertise of the budget director and the people that work here to help us navigate those waters, and as well as the engineer. So the engineer and I did, as well as other people, did meet this week to discuss it. So
You told me a month ago that the budget director was on vacation, he would be returning. That was about 2 weeks ago, and you get that worked out. And what I'm referring to is the fact that the funds have not been fully put in place such that Engineer Gills can bid the work out, because you guys want him to give you the money back to the general fund or otherwise bond it out of his budget.
and the money may not go there until the project's ready to go. We don't know how it's going to play out exactly. So, those are the things we're working on. Those are what we do every day.
Can you tell me that you guys are working with all due haste in sync with the engineer to make sure that as soon as he's ready to put it to bid, it goes to bid, and as soon as you have a bid that's acceptable to the engineer, that the work gets contracted so it can be expedited and get done?
I can tell you that the engineer and I have talked, and I think you can ask how you feel. Do you feel we're working to get a resolution to this? And we are.
Okay. I have one other.
Well, Chris, one of the problems is that, particularly on Ford Road, the design won't be done till spring. Now, we have our own personal estimate out of our office. So far, with the other two that have come in, where our estimates haven't even been close because of the changing nature of costs and whatever is available at the time. So from the standpoint of being able to make a full commitment now, they actually can't do it. However, we did talk about, Payne Road is coming up. We will have final, in fact, I do have a final cost estimate on my desk that I have to review yet. When I get done with that, I will send it upstairs for them to determine the funding in whatever direction. And as far as, one of the problems with putting a bunch of some money aside, if I'm not going to use it until spring, they need to basically keep that money, invest it, and do whatever until spring. And when I need it, then pull it out or wherever they're going to get it, put it in my fund, and we can move forward. But we are committed, as of our Tuesday meeting, to move these forwards when they are ready.
Okay, thank you. So to the extent I was incorrect, I retract my statement about being forthright, and I'm offering a sincere apology for that comment. I apologize for that. If I may have just a minute or two on another subject, or if you'd rather me come back up later.
You've by far exceeded the 5 minutes.
Okay. I'll wait till the next
Is it
portion.
something time sensitive? Can you wait till a second public
Can wait.
comment?
Yeah. Thank you.
Just trying to keep it tight. Thank you, sir. Okay, is there anyone else wishing to address the board at this time? Any other takers? Very good. Madam Clerk, first agenda item, please.
In the Utilities Department, resolution certifying the Lake County Department of Utilities unpaid sewer service, water, and administrative charges to the Lake County Auditor.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution increasing appropriations and transferring cash within Lake County Department of Utilities Sewer Fund and Project Fund 596, Kirtland Old Town Sanitary Sewer Improvement Project 445S 2021.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution certifying unpaid water and sewer sums and administrative charges to the Lake County Auditor.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
In the Commissioner's Office, resolution awarding a bid contract for a bullet recovery system for the Lake County Crime Laboratory.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
Mr. President,
Sir.
I said I was going to take a bullet. We meant it literally this time.
Mr. President,
Oh, Lord. Yes?
I actually toured the facility last week, and they said that every time they use this current unit, it's a tank of water that leaks. And to recover the bullet, they have a stick with some putty on it. They have to go down in the water to get the putty. So I told them if you keep shooting holes in it, it's going to leak. But
And on that note, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes. Thank you, gentlemen.
Resolution to enter into a release and settlement agreement with Hurtis Truck Repair Incorporated regarding a permanent easement for sanitary sewer construction.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
And the Finance Department, resolution approving payment of bills as listed on the Commissioner's Approval Journal in the amount of $1,038,598.40.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution approving purchase orders as listed on the Commissioner's Purchase Order Approval Journal in the amount of $636,164.75.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution increasing appropriations for various general and non-general fund accounts.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution transferring cash and appropriations within various general and non-general fund accounts.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes. Okay, moving on to departmental reports, utilities.
No report today, Commissioner.
Thank you, sir. Job and Family Services.
Following Randy's lead, also no report today, Commissioner.
Thank you, ma'am. County Administrator is out of the office today. And moving on to Clerk. Madam Clerk.
The next Commissioners' meeting is scheduled for Thursday, August 31st at 10 a.m.
Very good. Thank you, ma'am. Legal.
No reports, Commissioner.
Thank you, ma'am.
Very professional.
Very good. Yes, yes. You learned that from DeLeon, right? By the way, who got the green pens from?
I did get one of the
You got one of the green pens. Okay. All right, moving on to County Engineer, sir. You've had a lot of airtime today.
Yes, I did. Realistically, we had a very interesting evening. Our crews were turned out about 9 o'clock to review all of the areas that we know generally have problems with flooding. We did have serious flooding on State Route 2. We just had a lot more rain than the system could handle all over the county. We have not discovered fortunately, any really serious things. We were out early checking a couple of bridges. We checked the Blair Road wall, which we were really concerned about because we close that road. Leroy goes to Geauga County. So we've been out with our limited crew of 15 people since 9 o'clock. We kind of split that up so that they could roll over and get some sleep. But we checked all basins, all outlets, everything. We've been up and down the freeway. There's a crew on the freeway as we speak, checking behind the walls for drainage problems and that kind of thing. So we're doing everything we can. And obviously we got a lot of calls. We just would ask people to be patient. We will get to it.
Got it. And just to be clear, before the next commissioner meeting, I know I kind of put you on the spot, but you're okay. We're going to come in, we're going to talk through funding for roads and bridges, looking forward. You good with that?
I will make sure that I am always there when it comes to money.
Very good, thank you. Madam Clerk, assuming there's going to have to be some public notice to that, I'll look to legal. If we just do a workshop to discuss this prior to our meeting.
Yes, Commissioner, that should be.
Very good, thank you, ma'am. And thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, County Engineer, anything further, sir? Very good, thank you. All right, moving on to old business. Do we have any old business come before the board? Any old business? Hearing none, moving on to new business. I'm going to go to Jennifer on this one. I know you have something to enter into the record, ma'am.
Yes, this is something we do annually in order for the county to be compliant to receive the Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant Program. There must be a public announcement of the following grant and allow for public comment. So I'll read the statement. Pursuant to the requirements of the grant, notice is hereby issued that the Lake County Sheriff's Office intends to apply for the Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant, JAG, Program Fiscal Year 2023, local solicitation in the amount of $28,538 to purchase a 2023 police vehicle, patrol vehicle. This vehicle will be fully marked and equipped for emergency service and will replace an older vehicle that is currently in use. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, is there any other new business coming to the board?
Mr. President?
Sir.
I'd like to thank all the crews last night. Personally, I was at the Shoregate Towers where the collapse of the garage. I drove through there. It happens to be just blocks from my house. And the output of resources from all the neighboring cities and the county, and Joe Busher was there. And a lot of people were there in the pouring rain to help. There was 3 people injured. Luckily, nobody died in that accident, but it was a scary thing, and there was a fire involved, so they had a lot going on at one time, and it's good to see that, how the county pitches in and helps each other, and that's on top of all the other things the engineer had to do. I actually came down Route 2, and it was flooded, and it was kind of a mess throughout the night, and I'm happy to say that I'm sure a lot of our departments are tired today.
Very good, sir. Thank you.
Mr. President?
Sir.
I would second Commissioner Regovich in thanking our crews from the engineer's office as well as the Department of Utilities for responding to the many crises that occurred last night. I know I was keeping Mr. Roethlisberger and his colleagues awake, forwarding complaints and concerns as they sent folks from place to place to place. So very grateful for the hard work with no notice to keep folks safe. In addition to that, I just want to highlight a few of the great things that are going to be happening this weekend because it's going to be a very busy one in Lake County. We have the 39th annual Cleveland Challenge Cup of Bocce occurring in Wickliffe at the Italian American Club over the next 3 days. It's one of the biggest bocce competitions in the country, and so we're going to have folks from all over the world coming to compete in Little Wickliffe, which is going to be a wonderful exposure, as it always is for Wickliffe and for the county. We, of course, have our City of Painesville car cruise that's happening Friday evening. That's every Friday all summer, always a great time. And in the Kirtland neighborhood, we have an open house for the Joseph and Emma Smith home, which will be on Saturday. Also on Saturday, Hope Delivered is occurring at the Lake County Fairgrounds, and I know that Treasurer Mike Zern and many others are participating in that charity event, so it's going to be a wonderful opportunity to give back to the community. And if that weren't enough, we have the grand opening of the Wickliffe Public Schools building coming up on Saturday as well. I didn't hear in the report, but I'll say it for you. That JFS in their parking lot is actually going to be hosting the Lakeland Community College Hispanic Heritage Fest in their parking lot on Saturday as well. So 1 to 5 p.m. for anyone who wants to participate. And once again, the bocce will continue through Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So a lot of great events happening in Lake County this weekend. Hopefully we have some good weather. We certainly have earned it.
Very good. Okay, any other new business? All right, moving on to our second public comment portion. Mr. Massey? And again, if it's relative to this board, I'm not trying to see rebuttals and stuff to other public, but if you keep it in that context, sir.
Yep. Again, Brian Massey, 8196 Rainbow Drive. It just so happens I was working last night on school issues as far as proficiency scores. I do have a worksheet that has all 9 school districts. This is from the Ohio Department of Education. I didn't make up the numbers, I'm just sort of reporting the numbers. And it's very interesting that the number 1 school being Kirtland, their overall proficiency was just under 80%, and they spent $14,800 per student to get that. I'll just move to the other end of the spectrum, the Painesville School District. They spent $17,200 per student, and they achieved a 37.6% proficiency. In the category of third grade reading, which everybody will attest to, that is a benchmark for how well a student will do in the rest of their school career. Painesville had 87.5% proficiency in third grade reading. Painesville is 43.5%. As I take a look at the math scores in all of Lake County schools, it should be very alarming to everyone about the math proficiency scores, but specifically, in algebra high school, Kirtland had 83.5%. Painesville had 15.6% proficiency in algebra, and moving to geometry, there was 67.9% in Kirtland and 11.8% in Painesville. So if I were paying Painesville property taxes, I'd be very concerned about the product that they're producing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to address the board? Sir.
Again, Chris Weiss from Leroy. Relative to Mr. Stefanko's briefing given a number of weeks ago here regarding encrypted radios for law enforcement and first responders and the costs associated with providing that, I wanted to offer something that occurred real time just 2 days ago. So I have to go from Leroy over to Concord to pick up my sons, and on our way back we were heading down River Road, and we came to a place where the sheriff's deputy had parked his car in the street blocking traffic. Okay, not knowing if it was going to be temporary, I got out of the car and approached the police vehicle, the sheriff's deputy's cruiser, and I noticed the deputy standing in the driveway holding an AR-15, and he's like going, "Get the hell out of here." Which I took the hint. I got back in my car and I went the way I came, back around Adams Road to 84 Webb Road, back onto River Road because I have to go down Blair Road to get home. And as I was pulling up, a Metro Parks Ranger was moving his car into a blocking position at the intersection of Blair and River. So basically they're cordoning off some kind of a problem. I noticed other sheriff's vehicles there, other deputies pulling long guns out, checking their body armor, and moving towards a particular home. And I want to thank the sheriff's department for their immediate response to that situation. But here's what's relevant to this issue of the encryption of radios. So, presuming I was one of the first people to see this, I went ahead and posted onto the Leroy Township People's page. Sheriff's Department has just closed River Road between Blair and Adams. Not sure what's going on, but a whole bunch of deputies are surrounding somebody's home. Within a minute, a woman responded to me saying, "It's a standoff, lady with a gun." I said, "How the heck do you know that?" And she says, "I've got a scanner." Okay. Now, I don't know to what extent you guys are aware of this, but there's an actual app online. It's called broadcastify.com, and they actually carry the live feeds for all of the first responders. And I can tell you that right now, at this very instant, There's one person listening to the East Lake Police Fire net, 6 people on the East Lake Willoughby Hills net, 5 on the Lake County Fire, and 45 on Lake County Police and Fire, and 2 on the Mentor on the Lake thing. Gentlemen, that is a problem, okay? You know, I grew up in the era, as at least 2 of you did, I'm sure, in the 70s, the CB craze. People for entertainment had CB radios and police scanners, okay? But now in 2023, I think that it is unacceptable that civilians and unauthorized persons can eavesdrop on police, law enforcement, and EMS nets. It's just not safe, okay? Imagine if these deputies were approaching that house and the person had a scanner and could listen to what the deputies were saying. Oh, you know, Deputy Joe, I'm going up to the back door, okay? Or anybody else. The sheriff and our EMS people need to have secure comms, okay? As a soldier in the Army, one of the paramount thing that we had to do is to make sure our radio net was secure. We were trained in measures if we found out our net had been breached. I don't know to what extent that happens in Lake County, and it's not a public forum place to talk about it. But I cannot stress enough that I believe Mr. Stefanko said that it was $2.2 million to buy the total package. I would urge the 3 of you to make that one of your highest priorities, equal to the jail, equal to the roads in Leroy, okay? Because I would hate to hear of first responder, law enforcement, firemen being taken out by somebody who had the advantage over our safety forces because they're listening to their own communications. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I do have a question about the open house. Is that the Frank Lloyd Wright home in Willoughby that's open?
No, this is referring to the, and I think Commissioner Regovich knows a little more about this than I do. It's referring to one of the historic buildings relating to the Mormon faith in Kirtland.
Oh, okay. Thank you. There's a lot going on. It's hard to get to everything, isn't it? Okay, I just wanted to comment on Mr. Massey. And I certainly am very aware of proficiency scores in Lake County. And I think there are so many other factors to consider. And I know he kind of highlighted Kirtland and Paynesville. So other factors to consider in deciding where to live if someone has an option of where to live. And Cleveland Magazine does a wonderful job of this. I don't know which edition it is, but they do a whole thing on schools and ranking schools. And they take into account a number of things. Income level of the community, housing costs, educational background. I think we touched last week about there are more things going into educating a child than just who his teacher is. And I thought there was another, and students are not products. You know, we're not producing a part for a car. We are producing and working with, well, we have the students, but they're human beings. And there's all kinds of things to consider in how well they're going to perform in school. And if they are given the opportunities to have special needs addressed, which I think the state does a pretty good job on, breaking students with, I know my daughter teaches OT in Texas, and she works in a high school with mostly autistic children, just giving them the reinforcement that they need. And I know some of the local people in our district and in other districts who are doing that. So it's meeting the students at where they come from. You know, they're not all arriving on the first day fully fed, you know, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. There's other factors involved in education. And then there was another comment about property tax, and I thought that was very interesting because our property tax is paid to the county, correct, and then it's up to the state to take our property taxes. Well, there are other states who handle education so differently. Maryland puts all those property taxes in a big pot. whether I live in Kirtland Hills or whether I live in Paynesville, and they dole it out equally amongst all their school districts. That seems very fair and equitable. Ohio, has created kind of a haves and a haves-not school district because, you can only fund your schools on your property tax and other federal government incentives and so forth. So, and I just also want to comment that I know many teachers in Paynesville City School District, and they are dedicated and they go above and beyond by applying for grants to enhance their students' learning experience. Money is tight. We have a fantastic preschool program. Family Resource Center, Maribel Young, she used to be at Elm Street. Now she's at Maple. So the school administration is really working to provide resources and extra programs to help students in Paynesville City. And I think if Mr. Massey, if you checked all of those things like income level, housing costs, educational background, you would see that it's very difficult to compare Kirtland to Paynesville. They're not products. We're kind of comparing apples to oranges here as far as some of the basic needs that need to be met in Paynesville City, prior to giving a full educational experience. And that's our goal, to raise those proficiency scores. So thank you very much.
Thank you,
Mr. President,
sir.
I want to take a moment to agree with both Mr. Massey and Ms. Osborne. It's very concerning when you see proficiency scores so much lower in Paynesville, even though more is spent per child. It's very concerning, and no public school is happy with a 15% proficiency rate in math. And I'm sure that Paynesville is very concerned with how underperforming their students currently are relative to other Lake County communities. I'm sure they are. But that's a very powerful principle we need to remember. Money doesn't necessarily plug the hole or fix the problem. You can spend an unlimited amount of money per student and it won't necessarily increase the proficiency score. So the false narrative that we often hear is if we pass one more levy and we spend another $10,000 per student, we'll save their souls and they'll all learn math. That's not true. At a certain point, there are diminishing returns because, as Ms. Osborne says, there are more factors than just the money spent per child and in terms of how they succeed. And Paynesville is spending more per child, and yet they're having a worse result than Kirtland. I've said before that it's impossible to expect a public school teacher to catch up a student who's not eating enough at home, who has a terrible home life, who's in a broken family, who's being abused. It's impossible to expect that teacher to turn them into a Rhodes Scholar. That's not a fair expectation. But at the same time, it doesn't mean we can throw up our hands and say, let's go ahead and spend $17,000 per student and accept the fact that they don't know how to read or write. That's not an acceptable outcome. Ultimately, you should not throw good money after bad. You shouldn't just keep spending more and more and more knowing full well the child won't learn. We need to address the broader problems. And part of that is recalling our values and the fact that families matter. Children matter. Frankly, faith in something more than yourself, I believe faith in God matters because it's our obligation to take care of our family. We can't just walk away and say, well, I hope that kid of mine does okay. You have to be there for them. And we can't expect a public school teacher to be father, confessor, minister, priest, food giver, and babysitter on top of it. It's unfair. I feel like there's this false dichotomy where some people just attack the teacher because they're not magically fixing all of society's ills. At the same time, we can't keep doing what we're doing. We can't spend tens of thousands of dollars per student and say, well, they learned nothing, but we don't care about the fact we spent all this money that, frankly, we're taking from hardworking middle class and in some cases poor folks. They're paying property taxes too in many instances. You can't say I'm going to take $17,000 from you and flush it down the toilet. You cannot spend money without results. So the public schools do have to do better, and they should not be spending money that's not delivering results. if you're going to keep spending more and more and the proficiency scores go down, 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 it's time to stop spending money and change your approach. Maybe less is more. But at the same time, it's unfair to expect the teachers to magically solve all of society's ills. We can't pretend that abandoning our values, abandoning family, is not going to have a serious impact on proficiency scores. We mentioned the presidential debate last night. I know I'm going to butcher his name, but Vivek Ramaswamy, that's the best I could do, said, I had the ultimate privilege, which was 2 parents who were dedicated to my education. They weren't rich, they came from another country, but they were dedicated to my education. And so now I'm a billionaire debating folks for President of the United States. That's the future we want for our kids in Painesville and in Kirtland. We want someone to be able to come from another country, not even speaking the language, and be able to succeed here in Lake County. I mean, when my father came to Ohio, he couldn't speak a word of English. And they just sent him to school and he figured it out. At first, they were concerned that he and his siblings had a mental disability, but they were confused why they were so good at math and so bad at English. But they figured it out. And because their parents were dedicated, my grandparents were dedicated to their education, they learned and they succeeded. And one of my uncles is a lieutenant colonel. 2 of them became professors. I could go on, but they started with nothing, not even a command of the English language. That is possible. It's still possible today in America, in Ohio, and Lake County, but the idea that a public school can just solve all the problems by charging more taxes and spending more money, I think that's where Brian Massey makes the strongest point. More money does not necessarily equate to higher proficiency scores. On the other hand, I'm tired of people attacking teachers for not magically making up for the fact that a kid doesn't have food or parents. And they're not the ones getting all the money. Let me just say this. It's not the teacher who's getting rich off the system. Teachers, if anything, are underpaid. This is not a fight between seniors being taxed out of their homes and teachers. It's all these administrators and red tape that the state of Ohio keeps adding position after position. I swear, if I hear about another assistant to assistant to assistant superintendent, I'm going to yell. It's frustrating. If we fired half the administrators and we paid the other half as much, we'd still have too many overpaid administrators. We need to pay our teachers for the hard work that they do. We need to tax folks less. Taxes should be lower, not higher. And we need to understand that if a child is coming from a broken home, the best school may not be able to educate them because they're just trying to survive. They don't have time to study or the mental energy to learn how to read when they're worried about their next meal and whether or not they're going to be beaten when they come home after school. We have to be realistic about that. If we don't reclaim our values, the best school on earth is not going to save that child. So I'm grateful for the passion I hear from everyone today, and I want to add mine to it because as a professor, I care deeply about education, and I'm tired of hearing that more money is a panacea. You cannot save the children by raising taxes. You have to accept that this moral relativism and the idea that families and values don't matter, it's killing our children. We owe them better.
Commissioner Ragovich, you want to add to that, sir?
No, I think that was well said.
Thank you. Well, the only thing I feel I can add is I don't want to lose this moment as a teachable moment. I think this is a good example of what equity actually is. That seems to be a word that's profoundly misunderstood. We have an example of 2 people who I think very candidly shared with us words to the effect of meeting people and students where they are. One size does not fit all. These are not simple issues. And there's going to need to be some tailoring and adjusting to communities, to people and places. So I just wanted to make that fine point. Is there anyone else wishing? Sir.
John Music, 45 Coventry Drive. I'll make this very short. As you may or may not know, Ohio is one of 17 or 18 states that has a 3rd grade retention policy. If you don't get a certain score on reading, they ask the parent, do you want us to advance the child to the 4th grade? If they do, they have to have at least in if I remember correctly, because I've called the state and no one's gotten back to me yet, so I want some answers. But anyhow, they have to be tutored for 50 hours the following year in the 4th grade, and they still are going to have to pass the proficiency rate in reading. And Ohio's one of, I think it's 18 or 17 states in the country that has this. I can give you all the names if you want them, but of the states. But I'm just saying, these are the things we think about. Like they said, reading starts everything. Reading. I don't care what you're trying to study or whatever, you got to be able to read. So that's what that is for. And like I said, this is a statewide thing. It's a national thing. So I just want you to think about it. And lastly, Riverside has a school board tonight at 7. So if you're interested in see what's happening to our schools, go to your school board meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am?
Margaret Bushman, I'm still at 5357 Ford Road. First of all, I want to say stop using the word babysitter and the word teacher in the same sentence, period. My question is, does the PowerPoint presentation from earlier today show up on the YouTube video of the meeting?
I'm looking at our tech and she's nodding her head yes.
Good. I think everybody needs to see that.
Thank you.
And then just as a lighter moment, if I sit in my driveway and I go to Google Maps and I put in any location, Google Maps tells me that I can't seem to find a way there because I live on Ford Road.
I think the phrase is you can't get there from here.
Right.
Yes, being an East Sider, I'm abundantly aware of that.
Yes. And Waze tells me if I'm in my driveway on Ford Road, it tells me to go 1.3 miles to Ford Road. And I'm thinking, it's 1.3 miles to Blair. But it's just frustrating. But humorous. You have a good day. Thank you.
Ma'am, thank you.
Google Maps couldn't get me out of New York City.
The latest weather.
So, anyone else wishing to address the board? Sir? I trust you have something new to add, sir?
Different, yes. Relative to Commissioner Plesh's comments about me earlier, I don't come up here and try to campaign. I'm not looking for attention. I come here to talk about the issues that are current, that are timely, that are being discussed and are of relevance today at this county level. Okay, I've been coming to these meetings since Millie Teuscher was a commissioner, came when Mr. Serino and Mr. Troy and Mr. Young were commissioners at various times, and I've been coming here this year since before any petitions were pulled, okay? I don't come here looking to campaign for the office I'm seeking. I'm very confident in my ability to run my campaign without using this forum to do it. But since we are here today and it's on point, you know, I'd be happy to campaign from this podium as much as you'd let me, okay? But that would only drag my other 4 opponents in at the same time, and it would just bog this meeting down further. So I don't see a point in doing that, okay? But I will say this, I agree once again with you, Mr. Pleshnik, on most of your monologue, the most recent one you just gave about education and funding and so forth. And I can tell you that most teachers are great people, very dedicated. They work for less money than they deserve. They stay after hours. They care about their students, okay? And great teachers are the gold standard of our society. Okay, I've had many of them. I'm currently serving on the Riverside Alumni Board of Directors alongside of Gretchen Reed and Mary Jane Watson, who were teachers when I went to Riverside. Okay, they continue to serve for free, and they were among the greatest teachers that school has seen in decades. Okay, and there's many more teaching today. I'm not against the teachers. I don't consider them to be babysitters any more than I consider my parenting time with my own children to be babysitting. I consider it to be parenting, okay? And I do agree with you again, Mr. Pleshnik. It takes a village to raise a child. The parents have to be involved. When I go to a a parent-teacher conference, and I've been doing this since my kid was in kindergarten, I would say, let me explain to you my understanding of my role here. My job as a parent, send my kid to school well-rested, well-fed, dressed appropriately, and ready to engage in the learning process in a positive manner. I give them my cell phone, and I ask them to put it in there, right in their cell phone, so that if one of my sons gets out of line, all they got to do is bring it up and say, I can call your dad right now. And I tell the teacher, if you have to do that, I guarantee you that behavior will not manifest itself tomorrow or the next day or for the rest of the school year. Okay? If the parents don't get involved, the system fails. If the teachers don't care, the system fails. Okay? And my observation is of teachers I've been dealing with when I was a student and now that my oldest is a senior, I have overwhelmingly seen 99% of the teachers are excellent people. They're conservative, they care. They're not necessarily pushing some of the agendas like CRT, okay? But for other reasons, we need to be on guard against those kinds of concepts. And I support a conservative viewpoint on that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to address the board? Anyone else? Thank you. Okay, we do have a request for an executive session. The purpose will be personnel employment. There will be no business to be conducted afterwards. May I have a motion to adjourn for the reasons so stated?
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plutchnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for joining us.